Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dale Danker, president of Local 514, TW Local 514 here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Um, in this session, we're going to go over seniority and compensation. And as stated in my previous video, this started this morning where we covered scope. We're going to cover these for seniority and compensation for maintenance and related, and for MLS. The maintenance control technicians, Jason Best, the chairman, Local 514, has been in negotiations, been to all these places with me over almost the last 5 years. He's going to cover MCT's contract with his group down in Dallas, and the maintenance training specialist, which is our tech crew chief trainers. Jack Moore has been, he's an executive shop steward, and he took over from David Corbett when he retired and was instrumental in trying to understand the book well enough to be able to sit with the training tech crew chiefs and get them the information and the questions that asked and the answers that they need. So today in this session, we're going to cover the M&R seniority, and I think we're going to cover seniority for M&R, then we'll cover seniority for MLS, and then we'll cover compensation for M&R and compensation for MLS. With me here in the room, I've got Kendall.
Hello.
And Linda.
Hello.
Albal.
Hola.
So we're just going to get started. Linda has the TW cheat sheets that we put out here, and I'm going to cover that real quick. Put my reading glasses on. So, if you look at this, it actually on seniority, it in recognition and scope, as we went over earlier today, talked a little bit about station protection. But as far as seniority, I'm looking at industry leading compensation, retirement gains, vacation. I don't see on the cheat sheets here, Linda, that it has anything really on seniority. I'm going to hand them to you.
It doesn't on this one much.
Okay. So Article 11 in all the books will be seniority. So we're just going to do a page turn. It's about 4 pages or 5, maybe. We'll get through it. We'll read through it and see if anything comes up that makes me want to give you my opinion about it. It says here, all references in this agreement to seniority will mean classification seniority, previously known as occupational seniority at pre-merger American Airlines, except where specific reference is made to company or pay seniority. So you'll still accrue your vacation by company seniority, and when you transfer in and out of classifications, it starts a clock in that classification, but there's reasons that we have to maintain pay seniority. So you move along the pay scales at the years of service you've been in that classification. That'll be called pay seniority. Paragraph A, company seniority is defined as continuous service in any department and shall begin with the effective date placement on payroll. Company seniority shall be applied to vacation accrual, bidding of vacation periods, and service awards. Adjustments to company seniority based on past seniority policies and or collective bargaining agreements will remain in place. After the effective date of this agreement, there will be no adjustments to company seniority. B, new hires. Classification seniority shall commence on the date of entering the classification. Classification seniority shall commence on the bid award date for transfers between classifications from this or any association agreement. Classification seniority shall govern in the case of displacement, filling bargaining unit vacancies, bidding shift and days off within the bid area, reductions in force, and recalling after layoff. If 2 or more employees have the same classification seniority, the employee with the earlier company date of hire seniority shall be senior. If the 2 employees have the same classification seniority and company date of hire seniority, the employees with the lowest last 4 digits of his Social Security number shall be senior. Let me repeat that. That's a change. The employee in ties, the employee with the lowest last 4 digits of his Social Security account number shall be senior. New hires. C. New hire pay date. New hire employees' pay date seniority shall commence on the date entering the classification. Seniority for pay progression purposes, pay date seniority shall commence on the bid award date for transfers between classifications from this or any association agreement. Seniority for pay purposes shall be adjusted for time lost due to unpaid leaves, as referenced in Article 25, leave of absence. So I'm going to read that again. Seniority for pay purposes shall be adjusted for time lost due to unpaid leave. So when you go out and you come back and you go, hey, I should have gotten a pay raise. My anniversary date's coming up for when I entered this classification. If you're out a month, or you're out 2 months, or you're out 6 months, seniority for pay purposes shall be adjusted for time lost due to unpaid leave. Unpaid leave. D. Employees working in a higher classification will also progress through the lower classification pay scale. Employees working in a lower classification will not progress through a higher classification pay scale. That's pretty simple. E. Employee shall lose all seniority and be removed from the seniority list when he quits, resigns, or retires. I don't know, somewhere in the front where we didn't cover, the reference to he will include the he's and the she's. E. An employee shall lose all seniority and be removed from the seniority list when he quits, resigns, or retires. He is discharged for cause. He does not inform the company of his intent to return to work, or the employee fails to report to work in accordance with Article 12 recall. He fails to return from a leave of absence within the scheduled period, otherwise provided for in this agreement. F. Employees who are furloughed shall continue to accrue classification seniority for 5 years. So you're on furlough, your seniority clock will continue to go for 5 years. From the date of the furlough and thereafter shall only maintain their seniority status while on furlough. Employees who refuse recall will have their names removed from the seniority list and shall be deemed to have resigned. All references in this agreement to seniority will mean classification seniority, except for specific references made to company or pay seniority. H. Upon ratification of this agreement, the initial combined seniority list resulting from the merger of American Airlines and U.S. Airways covering the classification contained therein shall become effective and shall govern seniority under the terms of this agreement. Seniority under this agreement shall be basic classification listed below and shall accrue from the date entering a classification on a regular assignment. Employees new to the planner, tech doc, or QA audit classification shall appear in order below the ranked employees listed on the initial combined seniority list. So this is I, paragraph I. Seniority under this agreement shall be by basic classifications listed below. Those basic classifications are QA auditor and senior QA auditor, aviation maintenance technician and OSM, GSE facilities maintenance mechanic and GSE facilities MSP, planner tech doc specialist and senior planner tech doc specialist. 5, cleaner. J, premium classification seniority under this agreement shall be established for employees new to the classifications listed below, utilizing their basic classification date upon entry into the classification, and shall appeal in order with other employees. Basic classification dates below the ranked employees listed on the initial combined seniority list. So the ranked employees, that's the Javits list. That's the Javits list that talks about crew chiefs, tech crew chiefs, inspectors. So you enter a premium, you shall appear in order below the ranked list. This provision is effective for establishment of premium classification seniority following the issuance of the final combined seniority list published June 15th, 2017. That's when it was final published. I'll probably get questions about this. Guys became crew chiefs or inspectors prior to June 15th, 2017, and their name's not on the list. Well, Javits put a list, drew a line in the sand. I think it was December 26th, 2016. 27th? December 27th. Thank you. 2016. He drew a line in the sand. Then he gave us a time frame after that to send him an email saying that you are in disagreement, either where you're at on the list or that you were not on the list. And then June 15th, 2017, he took all those appeals and he rendered a final decision in a final seniority list published on June 15th, 2017. So the argument was, should people after December 27th, 2016, that took higher premium jobs up to June 15th, 2017, should they be included on the Javits super seniority list? And there's a lot of people that say, yes, they should have. And I'm uncertain as to whether or not they will ever be put on the list or not. But if you're a crew chief inspector in a higher premium job and you're not on the list, I think the chances are that you're not going to get on the list. But be that as it may, if you're in an area that you're able to hold your shift and days off as it stands, you just need to try to see if afterwards if that's going to affect you. If it is, and you got to bail out of a higher premium job, you need to really think that through on when you would want to bail out. So back up a sentence here and read this. The provisions effective for establishing premium classification seniority following the issuance of the final combined seniority list published June 15th, 2017. Those lists included: number 1, inspector; 2, tech crew chief AMT and crew chief AMT; tech crew chief GSC facilities and crew chief GSC facilities; and crew chief for cleaners. K, employee who occupy a rank position in the premium classification of inspector, tech crew chief AMT, crew chief AMT, tech crew chief GSC facilities, or crew chief GSC facilities shall, upon voluntarily moving to another position covered under this agreement or any association agreement, be removed from the rank status of the premium classification seniority. Should that same employee subsequently re-enter the premium classification, he shall establish seniority in that classification in the same manner as other employees who enter the classification for the first time described herein. So if you're on one of the lists above in J, there was 4 lists. If you're on one of those lists and that's your job today and this is ratified, then you leave and go somewhere else and come back, your ranked position goes away and the list becomes smaller and smaller and smaller as people leave or retire, leave the company for whatever reason. The list shrinks down to a point where it goes away, and it's just the old TWU way of doing business. You enter the classification, and you start your clock in that classification, and that's how you're ranked. I mean, it's not really, it shouldn't even be called rank after that. You're just up against everybody else with your time for bidding purposes. Okay. L, the company shall post a seniority list by the last day of January of each year, and employees or the association may protest any omission or error affecting the employee's seniority within 30 days of the current posting. Such list published by group or classification will provide at minimum the name, employee number, seniority number, classification seniority date, company seniority date, job classification, and station of each employee covered under this agreement. Any employee on leave at the time of posting will have a period of 30 days from his date of return to service to file a protest. So for the TWU guys, I think when we look at the seniority list going forward, it's going to have a lot more information about you on it. M, an employee having classification seniority who moves to a position in a classification of work in this or another association agreement with the company will continue to accrue classification seniority in the classification and group from which he transferred. Big change. There will no longer be an earned or accrued seniority, to where we're used to, if you transfer, you go into another group classification, you retain that seniority. You retain it until you reach the time that you served in your old classification plus 1 day. Once you hit that 1 day, you lose the retained. You're no longer going to lose the retained. Let me read that again. It's a big change. It's a small paragraph, but a big change. An employee having classification seniority who moves to a position in a classification of work in this or any other association agreement. Leave the M&R group, go to the MLS group, go to the MCT group, go to the MTS group, go to facilities, come back, go to one of those and come back. If you, in this or any other association agreement within the company, will continue to accrue classification seniority in the classification and group from which he transferred. Page 80, paragraph M. That's a change. N, employees covered under this agreement may be assigned to special projects in the interest of the company that are outside the normal scope of their duties. Employees assigned to such projects shall continue to be covered by this agreement during the term of the assignment. The company shall advise, meet, and confer with the association prior to any such assignment of an employee or employees to discuss the nature of the project and any conditions that may be associated with the assignment. Employees on special assignment initiated under the conditions described in this paragraph shall retain and continue to accrue seniority while on this assignment. So we have special assignments here at the base. We have worked to put point of use cards together to try to streamline our efforts to increase to make better our turn times. That's been a sore spot in a lot of areas where the company goes and grabs one particular guy. He gets called the company suck ass and a lot of other names that I probably would get kicked off of YouTube if I repeated them. But those jobs, any of those assignments now, the company needs to confer, I'm going to say, with the local leaders of the union to make a determination if it qualifies under N, and if it does, that person can go perform that project. If it's up to me, I'm going to want to know what it is and when it starts and when it ends. And so that everybody that works with this individual, because the problem with these special assignments is special assignments come special days off, special hours, all this stuff. So I really would say that if the company wants to utilize N, that we would discuss it. I would rather it be put up and the senior person would get it. Enough about N. O, employees may be assigned on a voluntary basis to supervisory or, help me say managerial. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
That word strikes me wrong today. Managerial duties, except the issuance of discipline that are considered short-term in nature. The company will not create a personal documentation change for employees assigned under these terms, and the employees shall be considered to be part of the bargaining unit during the term of the assignment. Employees assigned under the conditions described in this paragraph shall retain and accrue seniority for a total of 60 work days measured over the duration of their career. If you got your book out, you can write MPR out by the side of it. You've all heard the term. I'm writing it by mine. MPR. People would go do MPR work. I'd get an MPR report from the ATD office in Dallas, and it would have a name and employee number of those people that are going over and doing company work, supervisor, manager work. And so the clock would start ticking. It was 300 and some hours a year, I think it's what the old book says. 320 maybe. So we decided that if you wanted to do company work, be on the company's team, go be on their team. But you only got 60 work days measured over the duration of your career. So to those that want to go become supervisors and managers, if this thing gets ratified, you better keep up with your time, because after 60 days of doing it, it says here, any employee who exceeds 60 work days in a supervisor or manager assignment described in this paragraph shall lose all seniority under the collective bargaining agreement and any other association collective bargaining agreement containing these same provisions. The company shall provide a monthly report to the association that records all persons assigned under the paragraph and the days of the assignments. So you'd lose your seniority, in essence, losing your job. P, employees who transfer to any position outside of the coverage of any association collective bargaining agreement, other than those assignments described in paragraph M and N, special assignments, shall continue to retain and accrue seniority for a period not to exceed 90 days measured over the duration of their career. Remember, this is outside of the coverage of this association. Any such employee who exceeds 90 days measured over the career shall lose seniority, collective bargaining agreement, any other association collective bargaining agreement containing these same provisions. All right. That was seniority for M&R. Al, did we get any questions coming in about it?
Yes, sir. Many.
Okay, let's try to answer them.
All right, I'm going to start up at the top. James Rainier said, do we have to keep our licenses current even if we are not being compensated for them?
So in Title II, when they did the pay seniority adjustment, they looked at what was required. In the state of Oklahoma and other states have different requirements to maintain boilers, steam operators, electricians, plumbers, electronics, all of the facilities positions, depending on the state you're in, have different requirements. So here's something that happened. In the state of Oklahoma, you have to maintain a license to perform some of those jobs. In other states, you don't. So it went from getting paid a license premium to perform that work to getting paid a skill premium to perform that skill. So read his question to me one more time, Al, please.
Do we have to keep our licenses current even if we're not being compensated for them?
So if you're in the state of Oklahoma and there's a requirement to have a license to perform that job in the state of Oklahoma, I believe that American Airlines is going to follow the state law and require you to have that license. So you'll get a skill premium to do those jobs that you used to get a license. Next.
We have some that are based on compensation, but I'm going to go ahead and address it now with you. So,
okay,
if you would. It says, so I'm currently on step 6 through 7 as an OSM, and on my current pay anniversary date is March 9th, 2014. Since the new pay scale for OSM only has 6 steps, does that mean I'll go straight to the 3425 if this passes?
Yes. So how seniority works when you move from one classification to another is you go over and up. So if you're working as an aircraft cleaner and you make it whatever your wage is, no matter what step you're on, it matters what wage you're at. So you take your wage and you go over to the OSM scale. That's where you transferred. And you go to, if it's $19.50 an hour, I'm just using that as a made up number. You go over to the aircraft cleaner, from the aircraft cleaner scale over to the OSM scale. and you find 1950. If 1950 doesn't exist, you move up until you find a wage that is greater than your 1950. You never go back, you go up. Once you place on that scale, then your pay seniority date, when you entered in the day one, 12 months later, you go up by years after that. You go over with money, over and up, and then pay seniority increases you every year on the steps till you top out. So if you slide over as an aircraft cleaner onto the OSM scale, wherever you slid over, and your pay seniority is coming up, and this thing gets ratified, your pay seniority is a day before or a day after, it doesn't matter. Soon as if this thing gets ratified and there is no more a step above where you're at, because they took, I think, all 2 steps off of OSM, you top out. There's some guys, I think, going to get a $13 an hour pay raise within 12 months. So, Al, next question.
The next one's from James Gardner.
Yeah.
Let's say, so if June 15th on the list afterwards is your seniority by the date they entered or by the base seniority.
Read it to me again.
I'm lost it. As if June 15th on the list afterwards is your seniority by the date entered or by the base seniority.
You guys understand that question?
James, you're gonna have to clarify that, buddy. Try back again.
Hey,
Next one.
James, give us some more details on the question that you're asking. I don't want to try to answer it and then cause more confusion. Go ahead, Al. Next.
Scott Warnard asked, the Article 16, page 106, paragraph 6 looks like non-licensed AMTs will go to $1 an hour instead of skill premium, or does that only apply to a new hire?
So how many of these are compensation? Because
Yeah, that looked like a compensation. The next one was talking about, from Terry Lesperance, was several AMTs hired same day are on seniority list by birthday. Will this change to Social Security numbers?
I think the list, the Javits put the list out. However that list is how it's going to be. I'd ask them to go back and look at the list and see if it reorganized or not. I believe the answer is, I said that kind of already knowing the answer. He did not reorganize our list. He did not reorganize their list. So our list is not going to get reorganized.
And Nate asked a question, and his question was, what if they already have surpassed 60 days before this was ratified?
Yeah. It's a good question, Nate. So I believe he's talking about NPR status. I don't have an answer for that. I just believe that it'll get zeroed out. It'll start from zero. So
I believe it starts at zero, also a date of ratification.
yeah,
But it's no longer a 1-year deal. That's a career deal.
right,
Whereas before you could accumulate so many hours a year. This is for your career.
right. So I'm going to say date of ratification, like Kendall just said, it was zero out. You get 60 days, period. Next.
This comes from a Will Bissett. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it. If an AMT crew chief is started later than the Jarvis window, there is no change to his seniority rules, aka shift, bid, and so on.
So what's his first name?
Will.
If I don't answer your question correct, just fire off another question. If you came after, if you're not on that Javits seniority list, super seniority for crew chiefs, what will change is if there's a guy on there that his occupational seniority is less than yours. His shift and days off, he's in the same shop as you. Here's my super seniority guy. He's got less OC time than you. Here you are. You got greater OC time. Right now, you're above him as far as picking your shift and days off. This thing gets ratified, and they come around and go, hey, dude, when do you want to, what days do you want to work? You want days, afternoons? You want Saturday, Sunday off? Before, your OC time had you over him. Now he's a super seniority ranked crew chief, and he's going to bid his shift and days off before you do. That's the difference. It's a huge difference to those people. If you're in a shop where there's going to be a super seniority crew chief that's got less OC time, I'd want to know that if I was in that situation. I had other crew chiefs there. I'm sure most of you have already talked about it and know where you lie with your other crew chiefs. So that's the difference, Al.
Good. I've got James reiterated here.
Okay.
It says on seniority on the June 15th date and coming on the list for crew chiefs is the date you come on the list, the date. Oh my goodness. Be the date he comes on the list, or will it be by base classification?
Okay. I think I understand, James. I think you're asking if this thing gets ratified and a crew chief, somebody bids a crew chief job, and they come to be on a crew chief list, is it the day that they take a crew chief job, or is it their OC time? I believe it's their OC time. Okay. You'll start a classification seniority date for that classification, but where you'll fall is the old TWU way. It's your OC time. Now, IAM was okay with that too because nobody gets harmed that way. You just line up with your OC time, and that's how you bid your shift and days off. I think that's his question. I thought it was a while ago, but I wanted him to a few more details.
I'm getting a few more questions, but some of these are based on, like, if I'm on leave of absence. It says, do you still accrue seniority while away, or does it stop?
Yeah. So a lot of different leaves of absence, and there's a chart. Linda, can you look that up and tell me where it's at? Because there's so many different leaves. There's a chart when you go on a leave of absence, and it states what you get, what you still have running, and what you don't have running. And before I would answer that question, I would want to have that chart in front of me. Other
There's
questions?
Another question about overtime language. Will it zero out if TA passes?
I believe at some point there has to be a zeroing out of the overtime hours and the field trip hours. That has been talked about. What would that be? I'm not for certain when that would be, but it would have to zero out and the new rules take place where your hours follow you. Because all union contracts will say that they want overtime to be distributed as equally and fairly as possible. And the only way to, thank you, Linda, the only way to do that, in my opinion, and I believe it's the position of the association, is that your hours follow you. So if you're in a shop or a dock or out on the line somewhere, I don't know what they call them out on the line, but if you move, you go to another area that has a different overtime list. In my opinion, you should take your hours with you and compete where you're going with your hours. I mean, if you've made $50,000 on overtime and you go somewhere where guys have made zero because they've had zero opportunity, I don't believe that you ought to cut in line in front of the people that's not had the opportunity. So, Al, can you go back to the question of the leave of absence and the seniority?
Do my best.
Sorry, I know let's see
They're
if you
starting to fill up. So I believe it was
Do you keep your time? Do you keep accruing your time when you go on a leave
That's
of
correct.
absence?
That was another guy asked the same question
Okay.
shortly thereafter. And it's,
Say it again.
if you're on leave of absence, do you continue to accrue seniority?
Okay, so chart, it's Article 25, leave of absence, Article 25 in all the books. You can grab any of them. Top, it says leave of absence, and it has a heading across and a heading down. And it says unpaid medical leave, personal leave, unpaid adoption, baby bonding, military leave, union leave, political leave, occupational injury on duty leave, furlough leave. And the question was about what? Seniority accrual?
Accrual during LOA.
All right. Accrual of seniority during a leave of absence. So on the left, you go down, it says class seniority accrual. And every type of leave, all the way across, you continue to accrue class seniority for the duration of the leave, except if it's furlough leave, you accrue up to 5 years, retain thereafter. So it goes up for 5 and then flat, you retain. Pay seniority accrual. If you go unpaid, durational leave, medical, durational leave, personal leave, up to 60 calendar days. So you accrue pay seniority for up to 60 calendar days. A few of the other leaves are duration, political leave up to 60 calendar days, furlough leave up to 90 calendar days. Company seniority, so duration of leave all the way across. So you accrue company seniority for the duration of the leave. And then if you want to know the others, you just simply pick out what type of thing that you're concerned about: sick accrual, vacation, medical, life insurance, travel privileges. And then you find out what type of leave that you're going to be on, and you go down and it tells you, do you keep it? Do you don't keep it? For how long?
What page is that, sir?
In the MLS book, I know we're looking at 2. It's page 95. Kindle
M&R book, M&R is 153.
153 in the M&R book. Okay, Al, more questions?
Yes. OSM, if an OSM requires the A or the P and they get paid for that, what if they have both? Do they get paid for both licenses?
Is there an OSM position out there that requires an A or P? It's a qualifying certificate to get the job, but I don't believe there's any OSM position that gets paid to have the A or P. It's a qualifier for you to be hired or hold the position. You don't get paid. You don't get paid if you're in an OSM position or an aircraft cleaner position, or if you're an MSP on a facility side and you hold a license of any kind. It's the requirement that job requires it to get the job. Then you have to go to compensation and look and see if there's a premium or a skill payment for that. Now, I'm going to step over here, take this jacket off. Kendall and Al and Linda are breathing hard. It's hot in here. Al, how about another question?
Okay. This comes from a Chris. I'm gonna sorry, Chris. Trable.
Okay.
Will cleaners still stay in the same category as AMTs when they upgrade?
Okay.
Will their seniority stay in the same when they upgrade? And it says this is for the cleaners that are in school now.
Okay. So I did have this letter set aside. I did see his question as it was scrolling, and this is important. An important thing. It was important to me. I hired in 1987 as an aircraft cleaner. Made the least amount of money, had the most fun, and I was thankful I had the job, and it got me through school. But so to speak on the aircraft cleaner position and how it's seniority, what will happen with the seniority and how that will impact you over the length of your career was near and dear to my heart. And I spoke many times on our aircraft cleaners and the fact that they have what we call Title I classification seniority. And I felt like it was very important to be able to retain that and be able to use it in your career to move up and down. So Tim Kleeman, Mike Mays signed off with Jim Wheel from the company. This is in the book, and I can't tell you for sure page. And Kendall, will you find that page that cleaner seniority letter is on? And that way I can.
And his name was Chris Tribett. He corrected me.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Find it yet, Kendall?
I'll keep looking, going, take your next one.
Well, here I have it sitting here, but it's not it's the tentative agreement. I can read straight off of that. But let me just interior mechanic, cleaner seniority. Here I found it. Page 210 in the M&R book. Letter of memorandum 7, cleaner seniority. At date of ratification, if ratified, this would go into effect. It says the listed employees. It's confusing because what does listed mean? So I had to ask Gary Peterson to take this up with the company, and we believe that listed employees will be, at date of ratification up at the top, all cleaners that are on the seniority list at date of ratification. So the listed employees shall be afforded the opportunity to utilize their cleaner classification seniority date for bid, award, transfer, and pay in the aircraft maintenance group at any time during their career. And aircraft maintenance group will include cleaners, OSMs, AMTs, all the different AMTs. If you have an AMP, you're out in AO. If you're a welder, a machinist, a plater, avionics, bench avionics, any of those going forward, that'll be an AMT classification. Crew chief, tech crew chief in that aircraft group. So they will be able to use all of those in the aircraft maintenance group at any time during their career. It is further understood that this agreement permits these employees to be displaced by more senior aircraft maintenance group employees in reduction in force. So because I fought for the same thing that I currently have, I was an aircraft cleaner, I moved up. If I get riffed, I should be able to go down and hold that position as well. And that's what that last sentence is saying. It is further understood that this agreement permits these employees to be displaced by more senior aircraft maintenance group employees in a reduction in force, whether they were cleaners or not cleaners. A fight for the same rights that we had in our old book. If a listed employee exercises his right to transfer from his current cleaner position to an AMT or higher position, he shall continue to retain and accrue his cleaner seniority. If an employee from the aircraft maintenance group chooses to exercise his right to bump a listed employee who is working in the cleaner classification in lieu of bumping the system, he shall maintain his right to bid an open position in the aircraft maintenance group using his AMT classification seniority. It is further understood that while he is working as a cleaner, his pay will be reduced to the cleaner hourly rate that is equal to or the next step above his current hourly rate of pay. When such an employee displaces into cleaner position, his anniversary date for pay raises will continue unchanged. Okay, next question. Page 210, M&R book.
Very good. There's a question here about outsourcing. Did you cover that? And it's a recall. It says 50% outsourcing means in the event of layoffs, many of the new hire mechanics may never be recalled. I guess that's not a question.
Read it again.
50% outsourcing means in the event of a layoff, many of the new hire mechanics may never be recalled.
Well, I mean, that's a whole lot of speculating, but so there's a question or a statement that says in the event of a layoff, because of the 50%, a new hire AMT would never get recalled. So 900 and I don't know, 45 or 50 airplanes, 50% of AO plus the back shops, not including the support shops, the component shops, not including the headcount in engines. So what I've been told by the company every time that I get in a meeting with them and I get an opportunity to put them on the spot is that they need every headcount that's here. I currently don't have the number in front of me of where we're at with our old contract is maintenance spend, and how does that compare to 50% outsourcing on billable man hours? We think that it's a few percentages off, but it may not be off by far. If we're 42% outsource on maintenance spend, what would that be equivalent to in billable man hours? Our average age, I'm told, is around 58 years old. If you get laid off, the statement was we would never come back. We do have a minimum headcount of 2,600. They park too many airplanes. This thing gets ratified. Could they let people go? Yes, they could let people go under the force majeure language, but I just don't 100% agree that you would never come back. There's a lot of airplanes, and unless the whole world decides that when we get past this coronavirus that we're just going to quit flying, we're not going to go back to the way things used to be. We're going to quit flying and we're just going to travel by car, horse, train, walk, do social stuff. I don't believe that we're going to have to worry about the fact that you would never get recalled. I'm not going to sit here and say that with what I see in front of me with this coronavirus, that there's not a lot of people seem to be guessing at how long it's going to be and how bad it's going to be. I'm a realist. The reality is they're parking airplanes, but I'm also a realist to know that once it comes back, they're going to go back to flying airplanes. And if you're flying airplanes, you got to work on them. And we get 50% of the AO plus the back shop plus 20% component plus all the engines that we have the protection on. So I'm not telling you don't be worried. If I was in your position, I'm looking at TV, I'd be worried too. But I just don't believe that you're going to get laid off and not be able to be recalled. Next question.
If a MSP has been working in a shop for more than 2 years that requires a license, will the company sign off for him or her to take their exam for the license to be a mechanic in that shop?
That question sits in, I believe, classification, which we're going to cover on what day? I mean, I still got to get through compensation. We're taking questions. I still got to get through compensation of M&R and the seniority for MLS and compensation for MLS. It's 12:15.
At 3:30, you'll start qualifications and classifications.
Qualifications and classifications. So I'm going to defer that question till then. I'm going to try to keep us on point here. I know Ken will try to turn the thermostat down, but it's still warm.
Yeah.
There was a couple of statements made by Jim Bishop. There was no more questions related to what our topic is, but he also stated that Jim Bishop said it appears that the company included language to get rid of the many that have been disabled in some sort of fashion through their career. And it also appears that there may be a whole lot of added language that gives the company more power to remove workers from service due to the fitness for duty language. And I know we're not covering that. I just wanted to mention that to you since you may not have read it.
Right. Well, Jim, we fought hard to be able for you to come back on property if you get injured, whether at work or at home. You can do a percentage of the work required to do the job, and then you got so much time to perform at that level. And then after that time runs out, there's really 3 steps. There's back to work full time, full everything, if you're fully capable to do it 100%, there's an in between percentage of work that you got to be able to do, and there's a percentage of work that you have to do to come back off of an injury. So those things didn't exist before. I know a lot of people like, well, we used to have some shops where people could come back in and sit at the bench and do stuff, and it didn't matter if you was an OSM or an AMT or what your pay was. They would try to accommodate you, and we had a board that would review your injury and try to find an accommodation for you. But yes, that has gone by the wayside, and that's been gone for a while now. But I'm pretty proud of the fact that we fought hard to at least give you a gradual step to come back if you're injured, and try to get you up where you can perform 100% of the duties. So, all right, Al, if there's no other questions on seniority for M&R, I'm going to cover seniority for MLS. And Linda's here, and hopefully she's already studied up on it. If there's something that I needed to be targeted, laser focused in on, then she can point in that direction. Okay, for MLS seniority, starts on page 29. Linda, is it mostly a repeat?
It's mostly repeat, just like what you read for maintenance, except when we get to page 30
Okay,
under I
yep. The premium
through
pieces.
L.
Okay.
Yes, about the premium is your crew chief, and then the regular crew chief.
So thank you, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep from being redundant, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I'm going to start at H. Because that leads into where she said the differences were. Just kind of refocus everybody after taking questions kind of off topic a little bit. So in H, it says seniority under this agreement shall be by basic classification. Over in M&R, it listed what those basic classifications are, and it's going to do the same thing here. Listed below and shall accrue from the date of award or for new hire employees, date of entering a classification. Employees new to the planner classification shall appear in order below the ranked employees listed on the initial combined seniority. So the basic classifications there are planner and senior planner seniority list. 2, materials logistics specialist seniority list. I, premium classification seniority under this agreement shall be established for employees new to the classifications listed below, utilizing their basic classification date upon entry into the classification, and shall appear in order with other employees' basic classification dates below the ranked employees listed on the initial combined seniority list. This provision is effective for all establishment of premium classification seniority following the issuance of the final combined seniority list published June 15th, 2017. That's tech crew chief and crew chief seniority list. So, Linda, do you have anything you want to add to
No,
that?
it's
It's pretty straightforward.
pretty straightforward. What we've
Yeah.
been talking about, but if they have questions, they can send them.
Okay. And J, employees who occupy a ranked position in the premium classification of tech crew chief or crew chief shall, upon voluntarily moving to another position covered under this association agreement, be removed from the rank status on the premium classification seniority list. Should that employee subsequently re-enter the premium classification, he shall establish seniority in the classification in the same manner as the employee that would be in for the first time. Same thing as on the M&R side. If you're on a list, you leave, you come back, you don't get your saved rank spot. You come back and line up with everybody else. That's new for the first time. K talks about the seniority list, same as all the other groups. L, employee having classification seniority moves into position in a classification of work in this or any other association agreement with the company will continue to accrue classification seniority in the classification and group from which he transferred. That's important. That's a change. Employees covered in M, employees covered under this is a repeat. Employees covered by this agreement may be assigned to special projects in the interest of the company that are outside the normal scope. And I'm going to just kind of summarize it. The company will advise and confer with the association to determine if the project is something that will qualify an M, and then if they choose to go help with this project, they will continue to accrue their seniority. Again, my take on this is if the union is going to look at that as a project that's helpful to everybody involved, I'm going to tend to say that they're probably going to agree to it, or at least I would agree to it, because when we do these projects, it's to try to streamline working conditions to get it. It usually is speeds up the turn time on the product we're working on, but it's there to help the employee get that work done in a more streamlined, efficient manner. So if the union agrees to that, the person will continue to accrue seniority. And employees may be assigned on a voluntary basis to be a supervisor or manager. This is a repeat as well. If you want to do that, you get 60 calendar days. Career, the rest of your career, 60 days. If you go past the 60th day into 61 days, you will lose your seniority under this collective bargaining agreement. And I've had to, unfortunately, do this under the old language of NPR and send people a letter saying that they no longer had any seniority, and therefore they were no longer a member of the union, and therefore they were no longer employed. And what happens then is the company puts out their little safety net and catches them and gives them a company job. Okay. Oh, employees who transfer in any position outside of the coverage of the association collective bargaining agreement, other than those assignments described in paragraph L and M above, shall continue to retain and accrue seniority for a period not to exceed 90 days, measured over the duration of their career. Any such employee who exceeds 90 days measured over their career shall lose all seniority under the collective bargaining agreement and any other association collective bargaining agreement containing these same provisions. That's also a repeat. So now that we've gone over MLS seniority, Al, do you see any questions, or Linda, do you see any questions coming up?
Nothing yet, no, sir.
Okay. Now, compensation. That was just a warm up, because compensation is a little bit longer. If I'd have known in my lifetime that I was going to be on something like YouTube reading, I'd have probably paid more attention than Miss Dubin's 9th grade class in school, but here I am. Al's laughing at me. All right, compensation, M&R. If you get an MLS question about seniority, we'll find a place to stop and we'll try to get it answered. Okay, page 101. Don't forget, the more subscribers, please, I'm not a weatherman, please subscribe to that. What do you call that, Al?
Subscribe button.
No, that's a subscribe button. What do you call my name and that?
YouTube channel.
That's a YouTube channel. Gosh. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. If I get over 1,000, we have a lot more options. So the goal is to get over 1,000. Compensation. Article 16, M&R, page 101. During the period of this agreement, the rates of pay for the classification of work covered will be in accordance with the wage schedules shown in this Article 16, which are incorporated and made as part of this agreement. The hourly rates of pay set forth in this article shall be effective on the first Monday after the date of ratification. You know, it pays to read. That's the first time I've read that. I've been asked that question 1,000 times, and there it sits. Second paragraph in on compensation. First Monday after the date of ratification. A, an employee who holds a position in a crew chief, tech crew chief, instructor, or senior classification will receive his basic classification chart rate plus a premium of $220 per hour. Premium will increase to $240 per hour as of date of ratification plus 3 years. An employee who receives a premium will continue to receive that premium provided that he continues to hold the position, entitling him to a premium position. So if you're a crew chief in Tulsa, you're making $1.75, or an inspector or a tech crew chief, you're going to go up to $220, and then date of ratification plus 3 years. you'll go to 240. A1, the premium is added to his basic classification chart hourly rate of pay and will be considered as part of his base hourly rate for the accrual of all pay-related benefits. Length of service increases will be based upon the basic classification date. Length of service increases will be based upon the basic classification date. 2. Linda, will you answer that? Like everybody else, I have kids that ask stuff, and this coronavirus, it kind of has people pinned down. Will you tell her about 5:30? Sorry. Thank you, Linda. An employee-based pay will mean the chart rate plus any applicable premiums and or differentials and will apply to the calculation of pay for overtime, applications, vacation pay, holiday pay, sick leave pay, travel pay, field trip, furlough, or severance pay, sick leave, conversion to an HRA, and pay for occupational illnesses or OOJI. Number 2 is important. I get a lot of questions about how that calculation will be. Will double time? Will this? Will that? Will holiday pay? It's all in. It's all on page 101. A2. If you're a shop steward out here for us, this first page already seems to answer about 3 or 4 questions that we've all been getting. So, B, during the period of this agreement, the chart rates of pay for the basic classifications of work will be as specified on the appropriate pay charts below. So there it is. Off to the left, you'll see years of service, 0 to 1, all the way down to 8 to 9 on AMT, and moving to the right, after 12 months, 2% raise, and then 12 months, 36, 48, 2% raises. Ultimately, for an AMT, you get down to 53.24 plus your premiums. Inspectors, 53.98. They're at the top. They're starting out at the same, but at the top, there's a few pennies difference there. Plant maintenance, utility/cleaners, going up to starting out at 16. I'm just looking at some things. Planners, don't really know a lot about planners. QA auditors, tech docs, OSMs. A lot of the senior OSMs that's been there for a while are upset at the 34.25 top out. And I don't remember the percentage increase it was for them. I believe it was 5 or 6. And maybe the AMTs were 16 or 16.1. They based all of these pay raises, all these different classifications in all the different books, M&R, MLS, MCT, MTS. The challenge was to get an industry-leading contract. To get an industry-leading contract means, in part, to get an industry-leading wage. Now, some of the OSMs are upset that the pay raise that they received at the top wasn't as high as everybody else. And some of the questions that came to me, just simply put, said they just felt like that the guys at the top shouldn't have got as much, and it should have been spread across all the groups evenly. If you consider that's fair, then your goal is not to go get an industry-leading contract for everyone. Your goal is to go get an above industry-leading contract for your particular classification. And what I'm saying is probably offensive to a small group of people, but I don't know how else to say it. If you believe in any classification that you're in, that you didn't want the union to go try to get you an industry-leading contract, you wanted the union to go get less of an industry-leading contract for a particular group, so yours could be industry-leading plus a lot more, that would be very difficult to elect people to go fight for you to achieve that. Because when you say it like that, I want more than my industry. I want more than industry leading for my group. And there's only so much money to go around. And you don't want, I'm using AMTs against OSM because I know that's the rub out here on the base. If you don't want the AMTs to be equal to their peers, and they're not a lot above. I mean, I think a data ratification, we got Delta Flat or Southwest Flat. I couldn't keep up with which airline was the top. We're only industry leading because some of the other things down through the contract add up to make your benefit greater than any other airline. So just on pay alone, if you wanted to have a greater raise in your classification by taking away from another classification, then that classification doesn't get industry leading to their peers. And I don't know how else to explain it. So probably piss some people off, but
Good for you.
I fought hard to try to give my 2 cents for Tulsa, that I wanted to stop test. I don't want test. I don't want as many requirements. I want you to be able to advance your career. I want you to be able to, with your seniority date, bid a job and be able to go there and prove that you can learn the skills needed to do the job and perform the work. And if that place that you went to has a higher premium pay for that job that's performed, I want everybody to have an opportunity to advance your career. Everybody has a personal decision to make to try to, some places to go increase your pay would maybe seem to be advancing your career or advancing your livelihood. But some of the places that you have to go to increase your pay means you are new into that classification, or you may or may not take your seniority into there. You may or may not get the days off that you need to take care of your family. And so sometimes pay is not increasing your way of life, advancing your way of life. All right, enough about pay. The pays is pretty straightforward. On the left is years of service. To the right is how you go up. OSM, they took 2 steps off. So once you finish your 6th year, that's you 365 days of being into your 6th year, you go to 3425, and eventually you end up data ratification plus 48 months. You end at 3708. I hope you can move around and use your experience, if you so choose to get signed off for your A&P ticket, if that's something that you would like to do. Now, after the pay scales, the last one up the top of the page 104 is MSP, and then it goes to paragraph C, and I'm going to read that. Parties recognize the work performed under and within certain classifications in the maintenance and related agreement is varied and in many respects significantly dissimilar. Might read that again. They recognize that things are significantly dissimilar. For the purpose of this agreement, the parties generally acknowledge these basic dissimilarities of and between, number 1, the function of operation service at the line station, and 2, the function of overhaul maintenance service at the maintenance bases, have therefore agreed upon wage differentials. An employee with the regularly assigned to the classification of inspector, crew chief, AMT, tech crew chief, AMT, aviation maintenance technician, a crew chief, GSE facilities, tech crew chief, GSE facilities, and GSE facilities mechanic at line stations will receive a line premium of $1 per hour. Number 2, an employee while regularly assigned at DWH, all those employees that I just said at DWH will also receive $1 an hour as a line premium. So DWH does perform, if you remember over in scope, they perform a certain amount of man hours of line maintenance. It was agreed to in this book, and therefore they agreed to pay those people down there $1 line premium. Here in Tulsa, if you go, hey, we do that too, you're correct. We do line maintenance work here in Tulsa, and those folks that do the line maintenance work in Tulsa receive the line premium. Flexible starting rates. We have people that were hired here in Tulsa on a flex starting rate. They were froze until the years of service reached them. Then they added in the interim pay they added years of service to get to the top, and in essence, keeping that higher wage farther away from them. But down here, I'm regressing back to the scale. 0 to 1, it's 26. Then 1 to 2, it jumps to $29 an hour. 2 to 3, it only goes up to 31. 3 to 4, it only goes to 33. 4 to 5, it only goes to 35. To try to help with the take the sting away of what they did by adding years of service on top of you, between the 4th and the 5th, and the 5th and the 6th step, they added, you jump from 3588 to 4602. And then you climb a few more years to 4727, sliding across, ending up at 5116. I hope to those of you that are on, was hired in here on a flex starting rate, I'm hoping that even though that's not 100% fix, I'm hoping that it helps take some of the sting away of what happened to you. So, flexible starting rates. In the event the company, in its sole discretion, finds that any or all of its starting pay rates in step 1, as specified in Article 16B, that's the chart, are non-competitive with local market starting rates for similar situated jobs, the company may hire applicants in any classification at any station-based location at rates at a pay higher, step 2, through the maximum hourly rate in the applicable pay scale than those starting rates specified in Article 16B. As market conditions change, the company may, in its sole discretion, change its designated starting rate. Such designated starting rate may be higher or lower than the previous designated starting rate. However, such starting rate may not be lower than step 1, nor higher than the maximum hourly rate in the applicable pay scale. 2, in those stations-based locations where higher starting rates of pay are designated in accordance with Article 16D1, all employees in that classification at the station-based location who are receiving less than new designated starting rate of pay will have their rate of pay concurrently increased to the new designated higher starting rate. So if you hired in at the lower, they change it, you go up to the new bottom. 3, an employee receiving a flex rate of pay will remain on that step on the pay scale until such time that his seniority reaches a point that would allow him to advance to the next step. If you're somewhere and they hire you in at step 3, which requires, and I don't know what step 3, but say for instance, they hire you in on a step that says 3 to 4, that means that's the entry into the 3rd year. So you will stay there until you achieve 3 years. At the end of your 3rd year, you would advance from 3-4 to 4-5. 4, an employee who transfers to or from a station-based location which has adjusted starting rate of pay for its classification will have his rate of pay adjusted upward or downward to conform to the rate of pay received by an employee in the same pay seniority as his. At his new station-based location, such adjusted rate may not be less than step 1 nor higher than the maximum hourly rate in the applicable pay scale. So if you're hired in somewhere, say JFK, you're hired on a flex rate, you want to transfer to Tulsa, the flex rate's not on in Tulsa, wherever your years of service are at, that you'll slide down to that. If you go back the other way, you go up. License and skill premium. Wait, number 5, it is understood and agreed that the effective dates of step increases and other changes in pay rates are determined by the employee's pay seniority. So again, there's where we talked about earlier, pay seniority. You go up and down the chart by your pay seniority. You come over with your pay that you're on, and then once you're there, starts your pay seniority. That's how you go up and down. License and skill premium. An employee in the classification of inspector, crew chief, aviation maintenance technician, tech crew chief, AMT, aviation maintenance technician, regularly assigned to perform aircraft maintenance work, will receive the following license premium if he holds both FAA airframe and FAA power plant license, FAA airframe FCC, general radio telephone operator license, or an FAA power plant FCC general radio telephone operator license. In line avionics, only FCC general radio telephone operator license will be considered to license. A, the employee will receive $5.25 per hour. Number 2, an employee in the classification of inspector, crew chief AMT, tech crew chief AMT, regularly assigned to perform aircraft maintenance work, including work in the skill areas described in Article 16E3, will receive a license premium of $2.63 per hour if he holds only one. So that's half plus a penny. An employee in the classification of inspector, crew chief AMT, tech crew chief AMT who holds one of these licenses but who regularly performs work in skill area described in 16E3 will receive the skill premium as provided in Article 16E4 rather than one license premium provided in 16E2, and that is $345. So in 4, it says an employee in the classification of inspector, crew chief AMT, tech crew chief AMT, regularly assigned to perform work as an aviation maintenance technician, a machinist, toolmaker, a plater, a welder, or bench avionics, not receiving a license premium as provided in Article 16E1 will receive a skill premium as shown below. The employee will receive $3.45 per hour. 5, the following is a general definition and identification of these skill areas listed in Article 16E4 and identifies the intent of that paragraph concerning skill premiums. The parties recognize that both job test areas and former job codes are in transition. So if you're a tool maker and you just heard what I read, or you've dug straight in here to try to figure out that difference, it was a skill type, and now it's going to be considered a machinist job. Bench avionics is there. Plater is there. What's the one missing? Welder's there. Composite. A composite skill is, if you're receiving it, you'll continue to receive it. If you bid in there at a later date, it's an A&P is required. I believe is what it says in qualifications, which we're going to cover later today, Al?
Yes, sir. 3:30.
It's 3:30. So the parties agree that all individuals receiving a skill premium at the time of ratification will continue to receive their skill premium so long as the employee remains in the same type of work. That's pretty important, in my opinion. I'm underlining it. Okay, 5A, aviation maintenance technician, machinist toolmaker, employee in the classification of AMT technician who is assigned to the work of machinist toolmaker is described in the classification. Then it lists aviation maintenance technician, bench avionics, refers to classification. Plater refers to classification. Welder, then it refers to classification, which we're going to cover later today. An employee in the classification of inspector, crew chief, AMT, tech crew chief, AMT, regularly assigned to aircraft maintenance work and not receiving the license or skill premium of $5.25 per hour as provided in Article 16E1 through E5 will receive a skill premium of $1 per hour. We have ladies and gentlemen that have been reduced by no fault of their own from the area where they were skilled and received a skill premium to an area that their skill and they're not performing that work. They lost their $3.45. They received their $1. They will continue to receive that $1. An employee, number 7, next page. An employee not classified as an inspector, crew chief, AMT, technician, tech crew chief, AMT, or tech crew chief AMT, or an AMT who holds both FAA airframe, FAA power plant license, and designated and approved by the company's maintenance department to perform aircraft maintenance work as described in Article 7, which is classification, for the above reference classifications will receive a license premium in accordance with 16E1 per hour, and only those hours or fractions thereof rounded to the nearest tenth of an hour worked performing such aircraft maintenance work. So if you have a license, you got to do work in the above reference classifications, then you'll get paid for that, for those hours worked. 8, an employee in the classification of crew chief, GSE facilities, tech crew chief, GSE facilities mechanic, GSE facilities mechanic, or GSE facilities mechanic, regularly assigned to automotive and or facilities maintenance work, and this is in parentheses, and an employee in the classification of MSP who is regularly assigned to the hazardous waste function and who is not receiving a license premium as provided in Article 16E8 above will receive a skill premium of $2.81 per hour. So I'm gonna get questions about this. I'm underlining skill premium. And I'm underlining who is not receiving a license premium. So we're going to have guys that say, I'm an employee in the classification of crew chief, GSE facilities mechanic, tech crew chief, or GSE facilities mechanic. We're going to get a question, as we previously have. I'm a GSE / facilities mechanic. I'm assigned to do automotive and facilities maintenance work. And I used to receive, I'm required to have a license, and I used to receive a premium for that license, and I no longer do. Now, all of those people, if you're in those classification, you're not receiving a license premium, you're going to get a skill premium. So this really answers the reverse of that question. I used to get a license premium, and now I don't. Now you get a skill premium, $281, the same as you was getting after the interim pay wage increase. You felt like you got something taken away from you. The guys at other stations felt like they weren't getting paid to do that job, even though they weren't getting a skill premium. That state didn't require a license to do that job. People could have said, well, you should move to Oklahoma where you get a license premium to do that job. What they really did was they just said, if you perform in that work, you get a skill premium of $281. And now I'm going to have guys ask questions that they have been asking. They've already been asking this question. I don't get paid for my license anymore. Well, you get paid the skill premium in the state of Oklahoma requires you to have that license to have a job out here performing that work. There's no fun way to say it to you. Tech docs specialist. I'm not going to cover that. Number 13, regardless of the number of licenses an employee may hold and or the number of highly skilled jobs to which he is assigned, neither license premium nor skill premium, individual or collectively, will exceed the rate shown in Article 16E1, which is $5.25 an hour for the A&P ticket. So that's kind of they've set the line there. No matter what you have, there's a couple of circumstances where you go above that, but in this circumstance, it says none shall be above the $5.25 set for the A&P licenses. 14, license premium or skill premium as provided in Article 16E will be compounded in the computation of overtime rates and including as a portion of the employee's base hourly rate. 15, employees in a bid area dedicated exclusively to taxiing and moving aircraft will be paid a taxi premium of $1 per hour for all hours worked. For employees not in a dedicated bid area who taxis an aircraft or performs an engine run-up during the course of his shift will receive $1 per hour premium for the time performing the taxi work, rounded up to the next higher hour. Example, works 45 minutes, taxiing an aircraft, employee will receive 1 hour of taxi premium pay. 16, employees who perform fuel tank work that requires fuel tank entry will be paid $1 per hour from the time of the assignment and work card issuance and will continue until the work assignment is completed. F, shift differential. An employee assigned to a shift which begins at or after 9 a.m. and before 7:59 p.m. will receive a shift differential of 51 cents per hour. Employee assigned to a shift which begins after 8 p.m. and before 5:59 will receive a shift differential of 58 cents per hour. No shift differential will be received by an employee assigned to a shift which begins at or after 6 a.m. and before 8:59 p.m. For you shift swappers, you get paid, I believe, just the shifts that you are scheduled to work on. If you volunteer to swap into somebody else's shift that receives this premium, I don't believe will receive that. A relief crew chief will be an employee who will be required to relieve on a shift basis to cover for absences of crew chief. A relief crew chief will be assigned to a permanent shift when not relieving and will not be assigned to any other shift without a 7-day notice. And then it lists the start times and the rate of pay for those start times. I think I missed one on 4A. If you're a relief shift person, you get 61 cents an hour, but I don't believe we have any relief shifts here in Tulsa unless they have it over at the terminal. G, an employee will receive the shift differential applicable to the shift to which he is regularly assigned. The applicable shift differential will not be included with the employee's base hourly rate in the calculation of pay for overtime, vacation, holiday, sick leave, benefits paid for absence due to an occupational illness or injury compensable under the applicable work comp laws. H, an employee who is required by the company to fly on a test flight will receive 1 hour of pay at his base hourly rate in addition to regular pay for each hour or fraction thereof spent on the test flight. The company will provide a maximum of 100,000 test flight and observer aviation accident insurance under the conditions outlined in American Airlines liability policy for employees covered under this agreement. I, an employee who permanently transfers at his own request to another classification of work as provided in any association agreement, will continue to receive his same chart rate per hour, but in no event will his chart rate exceed the maximum rate for the classification to which he transferred. If his chart rate at the time of such transfer is not the same as any chart rate per hour for classification to which he transferred, he will immediately receive the nearest higher chart rate per hour. That's the over and up we were talking about for that classification. Therefore, the employee shall progress on the normal progression scale in the new classification. In the case of a transfer from a higher to lower classification caused by a reduction in force under this agreement, the above rules will apply. And that, folks, is compensation for M&R. Al, do we have any questions?
One item was brought up by Phil Grayson. It was about being off on the amount of the AMT raise is correct in the list, and it was by a penny or something. Kendall replied, and then another person said it was rounded off by 2 digits.
Somebody said it's 3 cents over the life of the agreement. It's not that it's not important. It just I haven't yet got to a point where I feel like I could stop what I'm doing and dig into this 1 penny or 3 pennies over the life of the contract. I want every dollar that's owed to me or every penny that's owed to me. I know there's a lot of people that do math that's spelled this out to me, as well as to Mr. Peterson and Raleigh and Gary Scheibel. I don't yet have an answer as to where that penny is.
That was all.
Okay. Scott, I think you had a question, Wernhardt. He had a question earlier. Was that on?
That was on compensation. That's correct. Let me
Page
back up to
106.
that. I apologize. That was
Page 106.
pardon.
I was telling Dale it's page 106.
You remember his
Might
question?
answer his question somewhat.
I just couldn't remember. I can't remember your question, Scott. We're digging back through it and looking for
Something
it.
about the dollar per hour.
It's Article 16, page 106, paragraph 6. Looks like non-licensed AMTs will go to $1 an hour instead of skill premium, or does that only apply to the new hire? Paragraph 6 needs clarification.
So, paragraph 6 on page 106, I'm going to read it again. An employee in the classification of inspector, crew chief, aviation maintenance technician tech crew chief, aviation maintenance technician, or aviation maintenance technician regularly assigned to aircraft maintenance work and not receiving the license skill premium of $5.25 per hour as provided in Article 16E1 through E5 will receive a skill premium of $1 per hour, which is the same as what we do today. So Kendall, you think, and Scott, you can, if you're still on, you can chime back in with another question, but I know of some, I know of some workers that are out there,
They were grandfathered in.
they're grandfathered in, and where's the grandfather rule at here? Let me find it. I did read where you'll continue to receive.
Under 5 here, it says the parties agree that anyone who is receiving a skill premium at the time of ratification will continue to receive their skill premium.
Yeah, that's it.
So long as the employee remains in the same type of work. That's in 5.
Yeah. So Scott, I mean, I'm not for sure what scenario you're talking about, but I know we have folks out in AO that are performing avionics. It's not bench avionics, and they're receiving $3.45 an hour, and they don't hold a license. So in 5, the following in general definition and identification of the skill areas listed in Article 16E4. So bench avionics is up there. AO avionics is not, but it has been clarified that if you're receiving a skill premium, same as the composite guys, going forward, the composite requirement is an A&P ticket. But if you're in there today and you're receiving a skill premium, you'll continue to receive that skill premium so long as the employee remains in the same type of work. Kendall, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Scott, chime back in if we're not hitting that, getting your question right. Alice or others?
There was only other question that was related to vacation, and I don't know that we're going to be covering that one.
Give it to me.
It's how many years of service do you have to have in order for the company to cut you a check for the 6 week of vacation? I achieved 30 years March of this year.
Well, I've heard it. I've heard it been explained multiple ways. So I'm going to derail since vacation was not one that I was going to cover. What article is vacation? Anybody?
Article 23.
23 is vacation. Do you have your cheat sheet there? Let
I
me
do.
see here. Is he M&R? It won't matter.
Is
But,
it M&R? It's on there.
yeah, let's see.
I didn't get those details.
It wouldn't matter. It's the same thing. Thank you.
So down here, it says increased vacation, bidding vacation weeks in 2020, 2021 for use in years 21 and 22. Completed years of service. Completed year 29, you go to 6 weeks. His question is, what did they say? It's been said both ways. It's been said that if you got to 29, if you had 29, you got paid, and it's been said you had to have completed 29. I think there's documents that people have put out that have said it both ways. And I am reluctant to, on this video, which will live forever until Al kills it, make a statement. I'm hopeful that his question was he had 29 by when?
He said 30 by March,
He completed 30.
by this March.
So he's completed 30. So the question is, do you have to have completed 29 or do you have to have completed 30? That's the question. The unpopular answer is you would have had to have completed 30 by the end of December 31st, 2019. I can safely say that if you completed your 30th year, he was 30 and then 30 plus 364, then boom, you hit 30 years plus 365 days, that if you completed that by December 31st, 2019, or there's other down the list, there's other scenarios where other people accrued under the new pay scale, they accrued would have accrued another week that they didn't get a select in 2019. There's other steps will also get paid a week's vacation. But the top scale, I'm not comfortable because nobody's put it out on a official piece of paper and signed it, stating that it's something less than completed 30 years by December 31st, 2019. Okay. Al, any others? That was a little derail off the course here, but I'm okay with that.
I'm to the end.
Okay. I'm going to pick up compensation for the MLS group.
Pretty much similar till you get to the pay, obviously, and
Yeah.
then B1 and 2.
Okay.
And then the driver pay.
All right. Compensation, the MLS book. Obviously, it's shorter, so there's less classifications in it. So it starts off the same language. During the period of this agreement, the rates of pay for classification of work covered will be in accordance with the wage schedule shown in Article 16, which are incorporated and made part of the agreement. The hourly rates of pay as set forth in this article shall be effective on the first Monday after the date of ratification. There's that question and answer again. Okay, so if you're a crew chief, tech crew chief, or in a senior classification, your premium for performing that job will go from $1.75 to $2.20. Premium will increase to $2.40 per hour beginning the first day of year 4 of this agreement. I think it's why it's not typed the same is odd, but it's the same as in the M&R book. I think there says date of ratification plus 36 or 48, whatever the end of their the beginning of their 4th year is. The premium is added to the basic classification chart hourly rate of pay and will be considered part of this base hourly rate for the accrual of all pay-related benefits. Length of service increases will be based upon the basic classification date. That's the same. 2 is the same. What you calculate it for: overtime, applications, vacation, holiday pay, sick leave pay, travel pay, field trips, furlough of severance pay, sick leave conversion to an HRA, and pay for occupational illnesses or entry OJI. During the period of this agreement, the chart below is for basic classifications of work and will be specified on the appropriate pay charts. So years of service, 0 to 1 for MLS, all the way out to 910. Slide across with your 2% increases. The next chart is for planners, 01 to years 7, 8, and slide across for those increases. An employee, while regularly assigned to classification of crew chief, MLS, tech crew chief MLS, and MLS at line station will receive a line premium of $1 per hour. An employee, while regularly assigned at DWH in those same classifications, will also receive $1 per hour. Flexible rate conversation is the same. If the company decides that they're not getting applicants for certain jobs, they can increase the starting wage, and you will freeze there until at some point in time that your years of service catches you. Then you will continue to climb the pay scale. All that language is the same. 4 is the same. 5 is the same. All right. D, driver pay / skill premium. Driver pay in the amount of 50 cents per hour will be paid for all scheduled hours to employees in bid areas where the DOT and/or CDL is required. For non-dedicated CDL or DOT bid areas, and an employee performs work there, where, not there, performs work where a CDL or DOT is required, the employee will receive 50 cents per hour premium for all hours of the regular shift for that day. The company commits to retaining an MLS driver bid area at Charlotte and Pitt. All other locations will be subject to management discretion as to the establishment of a MLS driver bid area. 3, an employee assigned to the classification of MLS will receive a skill premium of 50 cents per hour. Skill premium, as provided in Article 16, will be compounded in the computation of overtime rates and included as a portion of the employee's base hourly rate. The skill premium will also be included in the pensionable earnings. Shift differential. Is it the same, Linda?
It is.
Shift differentials are the same. 6 to 8:59, none. 9 a.m. to 7:59 p.m., 51 cents. 8 p.m. to 5:59 a.m., 58 cents. Relief shift 61. The employee shift differential, all that's the same. G is the same, 1 is the same. That's it. Any questions that you see, Al? Or Linda, do you have anything that you want to add to any of that?
Nope, you covered it well. Thank you.
I just read it. Read. I have to read, and I have to read lots of times, folks, to understand it. Well, good. Okay. All right. Al, was there any other questions that I can go back and catch?
I believe we got everything covered.
Okay. I'm gonna put these tabs back in here. So what's next, Al?
We're through with compensation.
Seniority and compensation.
So the next item will be the qualifications and classifications at 3:30.
Okay. Qualifications and classifications, we'll sign back on and do that at 3:30. If this is pretty dry for most of you, I apologize. Again, please go to this YouTube channel. We're public, right?
Right.
So if you're in your browser, you can go to YouTube, the homepage, and search Dale Danker. You might see some videos of me pop up. They should all be under this channel, and you hit the subscribe button, which is this little red YouTube looking symbol here. And if I get above 1,000, that'll help me be able to have these with you guys a little bit easier. There's more options. So 3:30, Al.
3:30.
Classification qualifications.
Also would like to remind everyone that the voting is going to be done electronically.
Yeah, forgot to mention that earlier. The voting will be done electronically, which was a big, huge lift for this local. Glenn Morgan and his team were your elected election committee. they had figured out how to try to get it accomplished with the least amount of pain involved. But the fact that the coronavirus is something that we have to consider, and to protect everybody, I'm glad that they made the change. So you should start seeing your letter in the mail that should give you a PIN number to go to a website and use your PIN number to vote. They're also going to send it to your AA.com email. Everybody has one. I haven't looked at mine since I took this job in 2013, so I'm hoping that mine comes in the mail. I believe, I'm told, if it doesn't come in the mail and you can't access your AA.com email, there will be a phone number that you can call and get a PIN number that way. So when you log on to the website to vote, something that's going to be at ballot point, you'll be able to get a PIN number by phone, with a phone call, I'm told. I don't have the phone number yet, so we'll wait and see. All right, so we'll be back at 3:30 to cover qualifications and classifications. If you're thinking of something and I'm getting ready to turn this live stream off and it pertains to one of the articles that we currently covered, I don't mind answering them or try to get you some answers, but we'll try to get qualification and classification answers first, is not to make this have to be any longer than it has to be. See you guys in a bit. Thanks for tuning in.